Welcome to my channel, The Human Frontier. The first thing I learned about working in an alien palace was simple. Nothing ever breaks quietly. My name is Rowan Hale, Chief Systems Engineer of the Lyravian Royal Palace, a structure so advanced it made most human technology look like toys. The palace wasn't just a building. It was a living system, powered by crystalline cores, shielded by quantum barriers, and woven together with energy lines that pulsed like veins beneath its surface. And somehow, it was my job to keep it running. Not exactly what I imagined when I left Earth 5 years ago. Back then, I thought I'd spend my life fixing cargo ships and repairing broken engines. Instead, I ended up maintaining the heart of an alien empire. Funny how things work out. The queen who trusted a human. Queen Elisara of Lyravia was not like other rulers. Where most alien monarchs surrounded themselves with their own kind, she did something unexpected. She hired humans, engineers, advisors, even guards. Some nobles hated that. They called it weakness. They called it dangerous. But the queen didn't care. Humans adapt, she once told me during a late-night systems inspection. They see solutions others miss. I had laughed at the time. Or we just get lucky. She had smiled slightly. Luck favors those who refuse to give up. That was the closest thing to a compliment I'd ever gotten from her. And, I suppose, it's why I stayed. The cracks beneath the surface. Palaces like this don't just fail. They decay slowly, quietly, and if you're paying attention, you notice the signs. Small fluctuations in energy flow. Shield systems recalibrating without reason. Security doors locking a second too late. At first, I thought it was normal wear and tear. The palace was centuries old. Even alien technology needs maintenance. But then I saw something that didn't make sense. The main defense grid, a system designed to protect the palace from external threats, had been partially rerouted. From the inside. I frowned at the holographic display. That's not right. Someone had accessed the system. And they knew exactly what they were doing. A warning no one wanted to hear. I reported it immediately. The Royal Council dismissed it just as quickly. A minor system fluctuation, one of the nobles said. Human misunderstanding, another added. I clenched my jaw. This isn't a glitch, I insisted. Someone is tampering with the defense grid. The council chamber grew quiet. Then one of the older nobles leaned forward. You are suggesting sabotage. Yes. That is a serious accusation. I know. Queen Elisara watched the exchange silently. Then she spoke. Continue your investigation. That was all I needed. The truth hidden in code. For the next 3 days, I barely slept. I traced every system pathway, every energy fluctuation, every access log. And what I found turned my blood cold. The sabotage wasn't random. It was precise, deliberate, and timed. The palace shields were being weakened in cycles. Small enough not to trigger alarms, but enough to create an opening. An opening for what? An attack. From the inside. The night everything broke. It happened during the Celestial Assembly, a gathering of nobles and diplomats from across the empire. The palace was full. Too full. Which made it the perfect time to strike. I was in the central control chamber when the alarms finally went off. Not a warning. A failure. The shields dropped. All at once. What the hell? Before I could finish, the lights flickered. Explosions echoed through the palace. And then, the security feed came alive. Masked figures. Armed. Moving through the halls with precision. They weren't outsiders. They knew the layout. They knew the systems. They were insiders. The betrayal revealed. I ran. straight toward the throne chamber. If the attackers had a target, it would be the queen. The corridors were chaos. Guards fighting. Nobles fleeing. Smoke rising from damaged systems. I dodged debris, sliding under a half-closed security door. The palace was dying around me, and I knew why. Someone had let this happen. The throne room. I reached the throne chamber just as the doors burst open. Inside, Queen Elisara stood at the center, surrounded by her royal guards. Across from her stood the traitor, Lord Vila, a high-ranking noble, one of the Queen's most trusted advisors. Of course it was him. It's always someone close. You disappoint me, the Queen said calmly. Vila smiled. You weakened the empire, he replied, by trusting outsiders. His gaze flicked to me. The human engineer, for example. I stepped forward. You sabotaged the grid. Of course. You almost got everyone killed. That was the intention. The guards moved. Vila raised his hand. Energy weapons lit up the room. The standoff had begun. The shot that changed everything. It happened fast. Too fast. One of Vila's men fired. Not at the guards. Not at me. At the Queen. I saw it before anyone else did. The angle. The trajectory. There was no time to shout. No time to think. Only time to move. I stepped forward. And took the hit. Pain and silence. The energy blast slammed into my chest. It felt like being hit by a star. For a moment, everything went white. Then black. I barely felt myself hit the ground. Somewhere in the distance, I heard shouting. Gunfire. Chaos. But it all faded. The last thing I saw was the Queen kneeling beside me, her glowing eyes wide with something I had never seen before. Fear. Between life and death. I don't know how long I was out. Minutes. Hours. Maybe longer. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the throne room anymore. I was in a medical chamber. Soft light. Strange machines humming quietly. And sitting beside me was Queen Elisara. You're awake, she said softly. I tried to sit up. Bad idea. Pain exploded through my chest. Easy, she said, placing a hand on my shoulder. You took a direct plasma strike. Yeah. I noticed. She almost smiled. What it meant. Vila? I asked. Captured. Good. You saved my life. I shrugged weakly. Part of the job. She shook her head. No. Her voice was quieter now. Not part of your job. I met her gaze. Maybe not. Silence filled the room. Then she asked something unexpected. Why did you do it? I frowned. Do what? Step in front of the shot. I thought about it. Honestly, there wasn't a grand answer. You trusted me, I said finally. And someone had to prove you were right. The aftermath. The palace survived. Barely. The traitors were exposed. The systems repaired. And the empire learned a hard lesson. Trust is dangerous. But so is refusing to trust at all. A week later, I stood in the rebuilt throne chamber. Still sore. Still alive. The royal council was gathered once again. But this time, the atmosphere was different. Rowan Hale, the Chancellor, announced. I stepped forward. Your actions prevented the assassination of the Queen and the collapse of the palace. I nodded. Therefore, by decree of the Crown, I had a bad feeling about this. You are to be granted the title of Royal Protector. I blinked. Wait, what? Murmurs spread through the chamber. That title had never been given to a human. Queen Elisara stepped forward. It is well deserved. I scratched my head. I'm just an engineer. She smiled slightly. Not anymore. The real cost. Later that night, I stood alone in the control chamber. The same place where I first noticed something was wrong. The systems were stable again. The palace was alive. Footsteps echoed behind me. I didn't need to turn around. You're supposed to be resting, the queen said. I get bored. She stepped beside me. For a moment, we just stood there, watching the palace systems flow. You could have died, she said quietly. Yeah. And yet you didn't hesitate. I shrugged. I fix things. She looked at me. And what did you fix this time? I thought about it. The palace. She shook her head. No. Her voice softened. You fixed something far more important. I raised an eyebrow. What's that? She met my gaze. Trust. The beginning of something new. Life in the palace didn't go back to normal. It changed. The nobles looked at me differently. Some with respect. Some with resentment. But none ignored me anymore. And the queen. She trusted me more than ever. Not just as an engineer, but as someone who stood between her and the darkness when it mattered most. Sometimes, that's all it takes. One moment. One decision. One step forward. And everything changes. Because in a palace built on power and politics, the strongest shield isn't made of energy. It's made of someone willing to take the hit. And that someone was me. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more cinematic science fiction stories.